Hey guys, happy Wednesday or happy Woden's Day. I'm doing a rune reading today, a little bit later than I normally do them. Yeah. First of all, I miss doing readings, but sometimes you have to take time for yourself to process things that are happening, and yeah, that's what I needed to do. So yeah, I apologize if that's something that you look forward to. So we're back. I had a very interesting reading for myself today, and more I'm finding that some of these readings are not supposed to be just for me. That I need to share them. And yesterday was one, and today is one. But I didn't do a video for yesterday, but I will talk about it a little bit before I get into today's reading. But yeah. So, yeah, okay, so yesterday's reading, I won't go over the exact runes because I don't want to take forever doing that. I'll read to you what I wrote about it, okay? So, essentially okay, I guess I have to talk a little bit about the runes. The first rune I pulled was Kana or Kanas, which is fire. It represents the creative fire that is within every person, every being on the planet. And the thing with it is rest and relaxation are required in order to allow it to rise. This is a rune of like arts and crafts and general transformation. Like if you think of all of the different applications for fire, you can't go wrong. That's what it represents. So it is essentially the will of man or mankind concentrated into a point, thus the torch, which is my wand painting there. So anyway, yes, it also represents children because that's a result of creative force, right? Please tell me you understand. Anyway, the second rune I pulled was Nothiz, which is the need fire. It represents it represents our internal fire, that is always there, that is always, if it doesn't come to the surface, it's still there, it's just a little bit buried. And in order to ignite the need fire, essentially you have to, the rune is a stick with another smaller stick crossing it, and it represents two inert things, i.e. two sticks, rubbing together to create friction to create fire, right? That's the idea behind the rune itself. So it is within the deepest, darkest depths of winter, and of not just like a physical winter, but like a spiritual winter or any other kind of crisis that comes up, where we realize our internal resources and ignite them. So it's through friction that these things come up. That is why when crazy transits happen now, I'm like, oh yeah, awesome. For example, the giant T-square that's happening with the new moon in Libra opposite Mars, right? Opposite Mars, square Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn technically, but it's a loose one. But anyway, so these things that are happening now are intended for us to ignite that fire within us. So I'll continue reading what I wrote. So Nothiz is taking action to alleviate distress. It could potentially, for some people, represent like a torrid love affair. but essentially resistance to your will and resistance to what you want leads to greater strength. And the message is to turn within. And then the last rune I pulled was Isa, which represents ice. And I kind of laughed this morning when I looked back and was like, oh, I pulled Isa yesterday because it snowed here last night. Anyway, yeah, and Isa is a straight line, and it is all about inner resources that can be used to overcome obstacles, right? So it's like, okay, so Isa is a transition. It is pulling energy within, taking all of the scattered pieces of yourself, pulling them within, and using that to break through and achieve transformation. They only like kind of, sorry, I looked down and got distracted by my words. The only kind of like downfall to Isa is that ice is really beautiful, and it can be blinding. So there's a danger there of being blinded by beauty, that's actually a false beauty, and then not stepping. You could step off of the path, and it should that occur. I mean, if you think about it, like you're in a snowstorm or a blizzard, and you get lost, turned around, hypothermia sets in, or anything like that, there's a chance that you could die. But the message of the rune is that, like just beware being blinded by beauty, and beware being controlled from outside forces. So today I saw that is what I pulled yesterday, and I wrote, I feel like my reading was saying for others around me and myself that we must find our inner resolve and resources, that this coming darkness will allow many to discover their inner need fire, excuse me, ignite it and burn their creative fire, allowing safe transition through the dark night. So you hear a lot, at least when you start going into like the spiritual community and stuff, you hear a lot about the dark night of the soul. And I feel like 2020 in general, but especially right now, this is like the dark night of the soul for all of humanity. Another really important thing I want to say before I move on to what today's reading was is that Mercury retrograde's no joke. Especially where it is right now. It's in the tropical sign of Scorpio, and it is directly across, directly opposite Uranus in Taurus. There are lots of videos about this, so if you want to know more about it, please look it up. I'm not going to go super deep into it right now, but essentially, when Mercury goes retrograde, the media lies to you. I don't even think all of them are even aware that they're lying. But there will be mass manipulation and more control. Okay? So this is the period that my runes are talking about. We must step back, concentrate on our inner resources, withdraw our scattered energies, stop taking in mainstream media. It is literally brainwashing you. I don't care how crazy I sound at this point. And you will make it through this dark night, I promise. The trick is really to just understand that the resources are within you. They're not outside of you, they're within you. So today's rune reading. The first rune I pulled was Ingwas. Ingwas. I kind of smiled as soon as I saw this because to me it represents the new moon, which will be in a couple of days. By the way, the moon is invisible starting 16th, I think. 15th? No, I think it actually might be tomorrow that we won't be able to see it. Anyway, the text for this rune talks about a hero that comes and that does whatever and then goes back into the east, into the darkness. And as I'm learning about astrology and astronomy and all that stuff, I reread that and was like, they're talking about going in conjunction with the sun. That's what they mean. So anyway, that's why it's the new moon, because the moon, you know, goes around its cycle, it's full, and then it goes conjuncts the sun, and while it's conjunct the sun, it's invisible. So anyway, it's the new moon. It represents solitude and darkness and new growth. So this is the rune of a required gestation period. Okay, so just like how, you know, babies require a period of protected growth. Babies, okay? That's the simplest way to talk about this is there's nothing happening externally, but internally there is active growth occurring. Okay? And there's again a big need for rest. So the very first rune in yesterday's reading, Kana or Kanas, is talking about that there needs to be rest and relaxation in order for the creative fire to come forward. Ingwaz is saying the exact same thing. There must be rest, and you must allow stages of stasis to occur in order to gather essence and energy, and in order for that internal growth to occur. So very similar message from both runes, both first runes in both days. So that was interesting. Second rune, Vunjo. This is the rune of joy and happiness. Okay. It also represents how there can be harmony between multiple different entities or people or elements, especially when they come from the same source. It's something that I've kind of learned recently is, you know, there's the whole new age love and light and everyone's the same and we're all one kind of stuff, but there are things, people, entities that are not from the same source. I'm not going to go any further into that, but yeah, we're just going to leave that at there. We're going to leave that there. So Vunjo is talking about harmonizing inner and outer elements. It's talking about creating an organized space, right? That's the idea of different elements and entities and things harmonizing, right? If there's a lot of friction or things that just don't make sense, then that causes distress, right? Now, normally when I do my readings, I don't typically look at the more like negative interpretation, but this time I did, and I'm so glad that I did, and I wrote it down and was really thinking about it before I did this video. Yeah, there's definitely a need to focus on your health, not just your mental health, but your physical health and harmonizing those things, right? So, I'll read you okay. I'm reading you what it freaking says, okay, because it's wild. And it's important. Bonjour. Stultification of the individuality in the group mind is suggested. So I was like, what the hell is stultification? I had to look it up. No joke. Stultification is essentially minimizing, making dull, or making useless. So this is saying the making useless or dulling the individuality in the group mind is suggested. That means, like, as I was reading this, I was like, sounds like narcissistic abuse as well. Blurring of individual efforts and minimalization of the individual ego can lead to loss of identity. 100% true. So, if someone was ever in your life that told you that you were not good enough, or there's any kind of minimization, and I can't even think of the like proper terminology right now, but anytime someone or something outside of you is telling you you're not enough, you're not good enough, you're too small, you're too this, you're too blank, whatever, it leads to serious loss of identity, right? And the most important thing for this time period right now on Earth is that you must know yourself and you must celebrate your own individuality. And this is something that I am beginning to really see. So, stoppage of the Vunjo force results in poor relationships with others, strife and alienation, as well as inner alienation from self and from the gods. Your spiritual force, your spiritual network, your connection with divinity in general. So, futility, uselessness, dullification of the individuality, hopelessness leads to loss of identity, and alienation. So as I was reading that and thinking about that, I thought of a few of my friends, really, that have been going through quite a difficult period, and it's very evident that this is happening with all the massive rise of suicides and domestic violence and all of the negative effects from the lockdowns that are happening. So the message so far from just these two runes is we are in a time of solitude and darkness. However, do not allow outside forces outside forces, whether they be other people or the media or just your own mind playing tricks on you, saying that you're useless and that you don't matter, because you do matter. Everything you do matters. Even if it's something as simple as a little painting. It matters. It really does. Your internal self and your force, your life force, your heart, your being as a person has a massive impact on the people around you, whether you know it or not. I just got a message from a friend who moved away, and I had given her and her daughter a little painting, and it was three fairies dancing. And she sent me a message, and her and her daughter had the painting, and they were making their own fairy paintings based off of that. And I was like, I had completely forgotten that I had given that to them, and it was so beautiful. It warmed my heart. I was like, oh. So anyway, you matter. Everything you do matters, okay? And do not allow anyone or anything to tell you otherwise. So the last rune I pulled was Tewaz. I love Tewaz. This is the rune of the warrior, of Tyr. Another thing that actually relates to astronomy and astrology, it actually, along with representing Tyr, which is the god of justice and self-sacrifice and stuff like that, Tyr also represents the North Star, or the Pole Star, which you would, before the days of GPS, you would use the North Star as one of your guiding stars to make sure you got home. So anyway, Tyr represents justice and faith and loyalty and striving to order things in a rational way. Now, with Mercury going retrograde, there's two things here. So I'll pull out my book. So there's two things here. One, it is important to seek truth and facts, and not just have blind faith in everything that's being fed to you. And having faith in yourself and in your guiding star, whatever that may be for you, is one of the things that will lead you through hardships, right? It says, justice can be expected and good judgment based on careful analysis of facts. Victory will be yours if you have acted wisely. The path to success may lie through self-sacrifice. Vigilance and hard work combined with knowledge are necessary, right? Strive for exactitude and precision and plan very carefully. Now here's the thing. With Mercury going retrograde, our logic is going to be all wacky. And a lot of people have, including myself, a habit, I'd say, of getting lost in analysis paralysis. I swear I just used that term in a video not very long ago. Also for sacrificing too much. So if you do not have the internal fire going, and your cup's not full, to use a couple different metaphors, you're not in a position to sacrifice. So yeah, especially if you're imbalanced in any way, really. If you don't have internal balance and external balance, and you're not in a state where you can be creative, then it's not a good idea to be sacrificing yourself or anything like that. Also, that ties in with the more negative interpretation of Wunjo, where if you are sacrificing yourself and sacrificing your individuality and your identity for something or someone outside of you, then that can lead to strife and alienation and a feeling of hopelessness. So yeah, that's the message today, really, is this is a period of darkness, but after the darkness does come light. And if it's necessary to gather your strength and gather your resolve and take a bit of an assessment of what some of your internal resources are, and be generous with yourself about those, because there's a lot more there than you might first appear. And then use this time period, this craziness that we're going through, to ignite your internal need fire and allow it to burn bright. And have faith. Have faith. Yeah, and just know that, like, if you allow these periods of stasis to if you allow periods of stasis and you're not always moving and acting, that is really where a lot of your internal growth will come from. And as a final message, if anyone out there, anyone at all, is stuck in an abusive situation, be safe, plan very carefully. Plan very, very carefully. Seek outside support. Do not allow yourself to be isolated. And when you're ready, escape. Is there anything else that I wanted to say or need to say? That's interesting. I just started playing with my my Thor's hammer. I was told once by a counselor when I was in a very dark period that I'm brave. And I was like, what? I'm not brave. What are you talking about? I'm a scared cat. And it took a little while to kind of like wrap my mind around that. But bravery is not being fearless. Bravery is about acting in the face of fear. It's about it's about acknowledging that fear and doing something about it. So there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world, and I urge you to not allow the fear that is being projected onto you to stop you from taking action. And that's why I had to record this video today. Yeah. Also, I hit 50 subscribers. Wee! That's pretty cool. Thank you guys. Yeah. So have a good week. Use this Mercury retrograde to go within. Maybe get creative with it. Do some artwork. Even if it's like you pull up a picture and you try to copy that picture exactly, that's fine. Do it. That's great. It doesn't have to be like super psychedelic or like doesn't even have to look like whatever it is you're trying to paint. It doesn't matter. What matters is cultivating your own individuality and knowing yourself. All right. Peace out.